So I was doing what all the cool kids do on a Friday night, which is laying awake at night and remembering all of the embarrassing things that I did and letting it eat at me. And today I thought I would share a story or two. We all have to live and learn. In this case, it's I live, you learn. Here are two huge mistakes that I made very early on in my career while acquiring my first clients, or not acquiring in some cases. I really hope that this video is helpful to any new illustrators who might unwittingly make the same mistakes that will literally cost you being able to work with your dream clients and on projects that you love. Listen up, because I'm spilling the tea, if only because you deserve all of the most amazing opportunities in the world to share your artwork with others. So the first big mistake that I made very early on in my career was using incompatible artwork to pitch myself to a client. And it sounds boring on the surface, but just you wait, because this memory still haunts me and I cringe and I'm like, Jennifer, why? But when I was in art school, they would send out all these kinds of emails occasionally for illustration jobs or other art related gigs, and I would respond to the emails that interested me. There was this one email and it would have been my absolute dream to work with this client, and I was so excited about it. The client was a children's book author and they needed someone to draw cute little bunnies. Look at my work and tell me I wouldn't be freaking perfect for this. I wanted to draw their bunnies so badly. I responded to the email with my portfolio and examples of my current artwork, and the client really liked my artwork, and then she asked, have you ever done an illustration job for a client before? And here's where I went wrong. I had illustrated a book cover for a friend of mine back then. To my knowledge, it isn't something that's published, but it seemed similar to me at the time. Young Jen just thought, this is a book, you're a book, this must be the same thing, right? Wrong. So I don't even want to show you the book cover that I drew because it wasn't poorly executed. It was very skillfully drawn and it was exactly what the client back then wanted, but it was the wrong example to send to this client that I wanted now. After attaching the cover of this previous project that I worked on, she immediately blacklisted me. Just to describe it to you, because I refused to put it up on the screen, it was red, black and white, and it had this scary looking lion on the front, and it had some reference to the book character saying something scary, something to do with blood or like something that was not a children's book illustration. When she saw that, she said, I'm sorry, I can't have myself or my work associated with someone who drew this. As I sit here today, she was right. Like, I do agree with her. A lot about building your career as a creative is all about branding. And branding is all about the things that people associate with your product. Like when you think of like, oh shoot, now I have to choose brands that I actually know. I was about to choose like a perfume and I'm like, I don't wear perfume. For example, Nike, just do it. Like it has this energy of motivation, ambition, you can do this. It has very specific images and feelings associated with the creative product. And so she did have a point. If her audience knew that the illustrator who was working with her also illustrated scary, nightmarish book covers for what she believed was a published book on shelves, there is a high risk of damaging either the reputation or the branding of the book that she's trying to promote now. And it's for that same reason I can't really bring myself to like put it on screen because I don't want it associated with my Small Joys brand. So I fully get it. I totally understand the choice she made, but dang, am I disappointed because I didn't have that knowledge back then that I do now. I would have absolutely loved to work on that project with her. So for any new illustrators out there watching, here is what you do instead. You create illustrations for your dream projects, either ahead of time or when she emails you, you just go into your bedroom and say, let me draw something that looks very similar to something you might like, but like a little bit of a subject change. So instead of bunnies, maybe you'll draw fairies or mermaids or cats. It doesn't matter if it's a paid project or not. It matters if it demonstrates skill, ability to work on a certain subject and render it in a way that evokes the emotion that she wants her books to evoke. And then you send that over and say, here are some previous projects I've worked on. And if you want to, in a situation like this, you can also be upfront. You can say, this would be my first paid illustration project and I'm so excited about the opportunity. I have created very similar work in the past. Here's some examples. Especially in a case where the client is seeking a university's help in finding an illustrator for her book, she knows there's a high chance that she will be hiring someone who doesn't have much work experience yet. You don't have to pretend to be somebody you're not in order to get art sales, I promise. In fact, people will probably appreciate the authenticity that you bring to the table as long as you show that you're willing and excited to learn. Stay strong out there, folks. Make sure your work samples are the same vibe as what they're looking for. Forget about skill. The way that a customer and an artist looks at artwork is very, very different, right? Because as an artist, when I looked at these two covers, I saw skill. I saw rendering ability, but customers don't think that way. They think about vibes, about emotions, about how this reads to strangers, plain and simple. You don't want to damage the relationship between you and a potential client by sending artwork that doesn't properly communicate to them what you can do for them in this project. The next big mistake I made with one of my first clients was not establishing expectations for the time of deliverables. In other words, what's your deadline? I was contacted one summer when I was in art school through a friend of a friend's employer, and they had a blog where they wrote and published about their company, and they wanted some hand-drawn illustrations to put inside the blog posts that they publish each week. They gave me a list of topics, things that they often talked about in their blog post, and the direction that they wanted for the illustrations. Images they liked, images they didn't like, what they were going for, what they wanted to avoid, and they just said, make us a bunch of illustrations. I did ask them what kind of time frame they were looking for when it came to delivering the illustrations, and they said, no rush, we don't have a deadline, take as much time as you need. And little naive Jen took that literally. Little Jen, I'm gonna talk to you for a moment, and any new illustrators out there. When a client says no deadline, they don't mean literally there is no deadline. What they mean is my deadline is flexible, and a flexible deadline is very, very different from no deadline. Sometimes clients say no deadline because they don't have external circumstances applying pressure to the project. Circumstances like a big meeting coming up where they will need these illustrations in a slideshow in 2 weeks, or a publisher wanting to view the final draft with the illustrations included by the end of the month. That doesn't mean that they are willing to wait endlessly for the project to be delivered to them. Your job as the illustrator is, when you hear no deadline, is to propose a deadline and communicate that to your client so that if the timing doesn't make sense for them or doesn't work for them and their needs, they can correct you right then. What happened in this situation was I literally took my time and I drew whenever I felt like it, because at the time I was working another job. I was also a full-time student. It wasn't like I was dilly-dallying, but among my list of priorities, the job was lower on the list because in my head I was thinking, well, they didn't give me a deadline. And I think I sent illustrations back to them, maybe like 1 illustration a week, but I was definitely capable of more. I could have sent them at least 3 a week if that's what I knew that they wanted from me, but I didn't have that information and I didn't have the knowledge and experience that I do now. After about 3 weeks, I think it was, they ended up firing me because I didn't produce work fast enough. And now with the experience that I have, like, I write my own blog and I know that I use like 3 to 5 different photos in an article or post. And if I'm that client receiving 1 illustration a week, like, yeah, that's not enough. I do need more. It's definitely a live and learn moment. Ever since that happened, I make it a point that when my client says, no rush, I don't have a deadline, I always impose my own deadlines. I put it in my calendar and I let them know you can hear an update within 1 week, 2 weeks, whatever makes sense for my current workload. And that way, if they, in the back of their head, are like, oh wait, I have this thing coming up in 2 weeks, that back and forth about when this will be delivered to them. Communication, my dear friend. Learn it well, learn it early. In this little safe space that we've created together, not out there in the big scary world. Have you ever had an illustration job go wrong? Or maybe you were working with a client and something just like was not vibing? Comment your stories below. I know we all have them. And if you'd like to hear about the other side of the spectrum, where I talk about my absolute dream clients, like these projects that I was so excited to work on and had an amazing experience with, you can click here and watch the next video. As always, spending any amount of time here on this channel with me is a gift. I really do consider it a gift, and for that, this humble artist says thank you. Beautiful. I don't know if you noticed, but I have two different earrings on because I lost the other one of this one, so I had to like match it with something that felt like it was the same vibe. Subscribe to give Tazo a treat. This is a hostage situation. Tazo, do you want them to subscribe? Oh, he's purring. We'll take the purr as a yes. I think that's a yes. Kitty likes butt smacks.